Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Hortonworks CEO, Rob Bearden.
Good morning to everybody here with us in San Francisco. Thank you for taking the time, and welcome to those of you who are joining us digitally. Never has data been more powerful, more valuable, or a bigger opportunity than right now, and this is exactly why we started Hortonworks just under 5 years ago. And we couldn't be more excited about the opportunity that we have in front of us and what our path forward looks like together. So we're very excited about some upcoming announcements that we're going to make today. Joining me later on stage will be Herb Kunitz and the rest of the Hortonworks team to talk about what some of these exciting announcements are. Before we get into those things, I'm going to share with you a little bit about what our vision, what our strategy is, what we've done in the execution of our journey since starting Hortonworks, and what our path forward looks like from here. So with that, let me start with really reaffirming what our vision is. And from day one, we saw massive opportunity when we started the company. And our initial vision was to be able to process half the world's data in Hadoop. And what we've seen is the opportunity has actually grown to be much bigger than that. And our vision has evolved to be able to manage the world's data by enabling the next generation enterprise data architecture. To do that, we must have a very, very encompassing strategy that enables that, and that we're able to manage all data, whether it's data in motion or data at rest, and be able to bring the modern data applications forward and be able to drive value across our customers and their enterprises. So our strategy is based on 4 fundamental pillars, but it's all designed to manage all data, all in the open. And again, by all data, we mean whether that data is at rest or whether that data is in motion. But it's very, very critical path that to manage that, we provide the platforms that do that all in the open. By doing it in the open, it lets the community embrace it, lets the ecosystem embrace it, lets the enterprises ensure that they have a path to adopt data platforms that will power the next generation data architectures that they're trying to enable. The 4 fundamental components to a strategy that are imperative to doing this is that we had to take and innovate the core architecture of Hadoop. The next area is that we had to make sure that Hadoop became an enterprise viable data platform. And the third element of the strategy was that the ecosystem had to be able to easily adopt and make Hadoop interoperable with their products, with their services, with their existing data platforms and applications. And we felt like it always was and has been, and we're, I think, proven very right, that we must do this all in the open to really accelerate the market, to accelerate the adoption, and to become prolific across the enterprise's ecosystem. So let's talk a little bit about what we've done against our strategy to execute against these 4 fundamental tenets that we're building our strategy and the company around, and the ecosystem around. Hadoop was clearly born at Yahoo with a core team that did tremendous work in building a platform that stored huge volumes of very valuable data that had sort of infinite scale capability, and it was a terrific platform for batch processing, single data sets, single applications. Did what it did extraordinarily well. And we saw the opportunity to be able to take that core architecture and evolve it to a platform that actually could power the next generation data architecture and be the next generation data platform. And we started the company partnering with Yahoo to bring the core team that built Hadoop from the ground up at Yahoo with the mission to evolve the core architecture from being a batch platform to being able to be a central data architecture that simultaneously can process batch interactive and real-time applications across that central data architecture. And we did that by bringing that team out of Yahoo and through our partnership with Yahoo, built Yarn. And Yarn became the data operating system that evolved the architecture into that central data repository, managing batch, interactive, and real-time applications. And since introducing Yarn in 2013, we've seen an explosion of use cases, an explosion across the ecosystem, and an explosion of Hadoop adoption across the world's most powerful enterprises that delivers phenomenal value back into the enterprise. So we could not be more pleased with the strategy of evolving Hadoop and its architecture. The next area that we've been extraordinarily focused on is to making sure that Hadoop was truly enterprise ready. And there's some very fundamental tenets that were required for Hadoop to cross the chasm to enterprise adoption. First and foremost, we needed to be able to provide those enterprise services. So the areas around security, the areas around data governance and operations and management and lifecycle enablement. These are areas that we've invested in very deeply through Hortonworks resources, through joint partnerships with the ecosystem, and with partnerships across key enterprise customers. And the result of that has been a set of enterprise services in the areas of security, data governance, operations and administration and management that are world-class and really have defined what enterprise services are for managing very large data sets that are driving mission-critical workloads. The next area that's extraordinarily important for Hadoop, again, to go into and cross the chasm in the enterprise is having the true quality and interoperability. So it's very predictable, it's very stable, incredibly scalable. It has all the interoperability components to be able to integrate with the existing IT investments, to be able to plug in easily across the data centers. And that it's very intuitive and easy to use so that the enterprise and the ecosystem are engaging with the data sets. It's intuitive to use it. It's easy to access. Most importantly, it's easy to deploy across any architectural strategy that may be required to manage the data, whether that's in the cloud, whether that's on-premise, or whether that's a hybrid environment where some workloads need to execute on-premise, some workloads are very appropriate to work in the cloud. And with tremendous investment that we've made, we've given the ease of use across any architectural deployment strategy that our customers have. Looking forward to hearing more about that later in the day. The next area that we've been very focused in our model and strategy is to truly power the ecosystem for and around Hadoop. So whether that's for the ISVs, whether that's for the OEMs, whether that's for the SIs, we want to make sure they have great access to the platforms. We're very proud of the initiative and being a founding member of ODPI. And the goal of ODPI with the leading enterprises and ecosystem partners was to have a common core of Hadoop that if you certify your application or system to it, you had interoperability across the enterprise. We're very, very excited about the progress that's being made there. The next area across the ecosystem investment that we've made is in the Hortonworks Community Connection. We have over 3,000 members into this platform, which is, you should think of as the ground zero for the knowledge base of core content for Hadoop, best practices, best methods for gaining value, basic questions and answers, all the way through very complex techniques on how to get everything from interoperability to best performance. And we invest heavily in making sure we're providing great content and collaborating and aggregating the rest of the community content here. On a weekly basis, we process about 11,000 users through this and engagement, something that's generating great value in the ecosystem. And we've aggregated over 1,600 partners. So this is truly powering the adoption of Hadoop across the enterprise. And of course, we're doing this from day one, 100% in open source. We embody and embrace the other best-in-class open source projects, make sure they have a clean, easy path onto HTTP and HDF, our data in motion and data at rest platforms. We absolutely are committed going forward to doing all our work 100% open as we always have, and that's the core fabric of our DNA. I think the thing that's so exciting is the model that we put in place around this, these four tenets in our strategy have been able to be very, very successful. We've created tremendous value for our customers, and as a result of that value, we've been able to monetize and build a terrific business. When we started the business in 2011, we saw a great opportunity to build a billion-dollar company very fast. I think we've stayed on plan all through that execution. In December of 2014, we were the first open source company since Red Hat to have an IPO. We're very proud of the team's execution. In our first year of being public, we did $122 million in revenue on $166 million in billings. And in our Q1 announcements, our Q4 earnings announcements, we outlined to the street what our 2016 plan was. We continue to see great adoption, great growth. We confirmed that we'll have a $261 million billing number and generate $188 million in revenue. And in 2016, we'll see cash break even. So we're very, very excited about how well the model works around open source, the ability to execute on that. And I think the thing that's so powerful is this is not a limited sector opportunity. The opportunity for data to create value for the customers, both data in rest and data in motion, spans all industries. And we're involved in so many industries in so many ways. To just give you really four basic examples: financial services, retail customers, telco, and automotive. We have a significant presence in a leading position in all. And we're seeing great adoption. We're seeing very rapid ROI attainment across all these industries, and the momentum just continues to pick up. So with that, now let me welcome Herb Kunitz, our President and Chief Operating Officer, up. He's going to share with you some of the great, exciting announcements that we have, and we're very excited about the rest of the day. Thank you, Herb.
Thank you, Rob.
Take care.
So thank you, Rob. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to be with you today to give you some groundbreaking announcements in terms of what we're doing in the industry. But before I go into those groundbreaking announcements, thought what we'd do is go through why is this important and give you a little bit of history in terms of where we've come from. So as you think about the world today, there is an incredible amount of data being generated from all the different devices, systems, machines, applications, and everything else in the world today. And all of that data, the Internet of Everything, or Internet of Anything, is generating today 4 zettabytes of data. But what's even more interesting, if you fast forward through the rest of this decade, by the end of this decade, there will be 10 times more data existing in the world today that companies need to figure out how to manage, how to embrace, and how to go glean value out of that data. And it's very difficult for a number of reasons for companies to go do that today. When you think about it, the reasons are data is organized in silos. And you can think of that in 2 ways. Data at rest inside of a company is typically broken into multiple different silos, multiple different places where they're storing that information. Then you compound that with data in motion, which is coming in from many different sources, many different ways, typically not tracked, traced, or pulled into the systems in an organized way. And what that does is that creates blind spots in the enterprise where they're not able to get full visibility across all of their data, or they're not able to track that data and manage it and use the same set of rigor and security and capability policies that they want as they're ingesting it into their enterprise. So as part of that, what we've seen is what the world is looking for is the ability and the way to say, how do I go build actionable intelligence by combining all of my data at rest into one common platform where I can go glean those rich historical insights, and all my data in motion, break down those silos, bring it together in a consolidated and concentrated way. So I have one way of looking at my data in motion. So more importantly, I can go glean the actionable intelligence that I require to go run my business. So we are very excited to have the opportunity today to introduce the industry's first set of connected data platforms. And this set of connected data platforms is something that allows you to integrate what you're doing with data at rest as you consolidate all that into one common data lake and glean those rich analytical insights, as well as all as your data in motion, being able to bring that together into a common platform and to be able to capture all of the perishable insights that in real time are important to your business. And by doing this, on top of this set of connected data platforms, you can build a set of modern data applications that allow you to glean the actionable intelligence that allows you to run your business. So why does that matter to businesses? Why are businesses asking for that, and why is that important? Well, if you think about it today, every business is a data business. Data has become the lifeblood of every business out there. And every business is trying to look at this and say, how do I get more insights, more information, more data? How can I manage that and go get in real time the different insights? And that could be anything from autonomous vehicles and connected car platforms. That could be in oil rigs where you're looking at how to get more efficiency out of the rig and the platform in terms of what it's doing on the ground. It could be things like precision medicine and how you're trying to find new insights into new disease patterns in terms of what's happening and improve the quality of healthcare. But every business across all sectors is a data business and looking to say, how can I glean value out of that? And because of that, what we're announcing, what we are very excited to announce, is our vision for connected data platforms. And this vision and this set of platform leverages some new capabilities in the Hortonworks Data Platform 2.4, in Hortonworks Data Flow 1.2, and brings it together into a set of connected data platforms that allows you to glean that actionable intelligence from the platform. We are very excited to be the first to go bring this to market and to give companies and the world the capability to manage all of their data. So let's talk a little bit about each of those core components and what they mean and how they tie together into the connected data platforms. So first, let's talk about data in motion. So we acquired a company called Anyara late last year, around October of last year, and introduced a product called Hortonworks Data Flow. And what was incredibly groundbreaking and innovative around this was the ability to take all of your data in motion and to collect, conduct, and curate all of that data. And do it in a way where all of the security, the governance, the traceability, and the provenance that you would expect and require to be able to manage that data and to be a good steward of that data in motion. And while doing that, deliver actionable insights that are perishable and being able to deliver those in real time. That's everything that we announced in Hortonworks Data Flow last year. What we are very excited to announce now is Hortonworks Data Flow 1.2. And there are some really groundbreaking areas that in this that allow you to do a couple things. It allows you to go do streaming analytics. So we've now incorporated Kafka and Storm into Hortonworks Data Flow so you can get those perishable insights in real time as your data is moving through the platform. Right? We found something that's very important is being able to bring in all data types into the platform, being able to consume them. There are now over 130 processors that allow you to go access that data. You know, some notable ones are things like Microsoft Event Hub, AWS S3, Splunk, and many other data sources that you're now able to ingest through the platform and bring in through Hortonworks Data Flow. Right? While doing all this, tying into the core security capabilities like Kerberos and everything that you need and require and expect, and also enabling new partnerships, a new partnership with the company Impetus Technology, who has their product Stream Analytics that can now run as an actionable intelligence application on top of this set of connected data platforms to allow you to get insights into your data in terms of what you can go do. So we're very excited about what we're doing around Hortonworks Data Flow and the new announcements around being able to manage your data in motion at scale. So let's talk a little bit about data at rest. Right? This is the core of what we've been doing around Hadoop, allowing you to accumulate, analyze, and act on all of your data. And we're doing that away with a centralized architecture, enabling multi-tenancy, and even more importantly, enabling you to go get a centralized set of security, governance, and operations, right? And we're the first to really do this all in open source, deliver security, governance, and operations on a centralized platform, so you have the ability to deliver rich historical insights across all of your data. Doing all of that in the data at rest platform, something we found that is very important and something our customers have been asking for. What they've also been asking for is Spark. So let's talk about Spark, right? There are a lot of companies that will talk about Spark and a lot of companies that can work around Spark. There are very few that can do Spark at scale. And that is something we feel incredibly important, is to say our strategy is how do you do Spark at scale? And those are the things like enterprise-grade security and what you can do around Spark, data governance, operations built into what you're doing around Spark, enabling more types of users and more data sets. So what does this mean? It means our strategy around Spark is doing it at scale for more users with more data and more performance. And that's what we focus on with Spark from a strategy. So as part of that, we're excited to be the first to announce the inclusion of Apache Spark 1.6 in our distribution. And the ability to go do some very exciting things. More scalability, 10 times or 1,000% performance improvement in Spark streaming, be able to bring in more data, and to be able to do it in a scalable way. What we have found is as companies scale with Spark, things like memory tuning and other things become incredibly important, and we're very excited to be able to go improve the capabilities there and what you can go do. The other piece about Spark is Spark has been the province of data sciences. It's data scientists who want to program, who want to work with that. We feel it's incredibly important to have a rich UI, a visualization engine that gives you the ability for many more types of users to start to delve into and tap into the power of Spark. And we're very excited to be able to announce beta preview of Apache Zeppelin, an open source project that we have worked with for over a year now, and the capabilities, what you can do to have a rich GUI, a rich UI. Now think of this as Tableau for Spark, right? A very easy to use, very simple GUI, all in open source, that allows many different types of users who aren't as skilled in programming in Scala and other languages to be able to get access to and glean valuable insights out of their Spark workloads. So we're very excited to have been working with Apache Zeppelin and providing this notebook capability and delivering this all in preview to open up Spark to more users at more performance. So let's talk a little bit about some of the core capabilities of the platform, right? Announcing Apache Mbari 2.2. Apache Mbari has been out for a while. What is critically important about this release is we found that our operational users want a single pane of glass to be able to manage all of their core services. And those are core services such as security, such as operations, and ultimately governance. They want to be able to manage all that from a single pane of glass. The other thing that we're incredibly excited about is SmartSense. And this is something we introduced last year. And the way you should be thinking about SmartSense, it is cluster intelligence. It is the ability to go take all of the usage and the patterns and everything about your cluster and how it operates at scale in a performant way, package that together into a set of recommendations that you can proactively share to go look at your cluster and make recommendations on how to run it in a more performant way. We've more than tripled the number of recommendations in this release that allow you to better run your cluster at scale and get maximum performance and efficiency out of the dollars that you're investing into your platform. SmartSense is, in our view, the only way to do that at scale and to be able to enable that capability for your users. One thing we found very exciting, but also very important to our customers, is because we have over 800 customers, we have seen the pattern in terms of multiple types of customers. I'm going to broadly categorize them into two types. We have those large production customers running hundreds or many thousands of nodes who highly value stability and scalability in their platform, and they want to make sure that they are minimizing all downtime and they've got the ability to go run that platform at scale. We have a whole nother set of users who greatly value being on the bleeding edge of innovation, the latest release cycle, and they want to be on exactly what's happening in the platform at that second, at that moment. They want to know they have the ability to go do that. What we're excited to be able to announce today is we're providing the first distribution that gives you the ability to manage both sets of users. To be able to take the core of Hadoop and say, let's go rev that at a slower cycle, and let's go give the ability for stability for companies to go really drive that into their enterprise and get stability in the platform. But let's also available things like Spark and Hive and Embari and HBase and the others, and those to be on a rapid innovation cycle where somebody can drive rapid innovation, continue to stay in the leading edge, but let's have all of that on one connected data platforms. The ability to go do that, we think, is something unique in the industry and something we're very excited to be able to support all users, whether they are newer users who are accelerating their adoption or existing users who are long into their strategy and have been working with us for years. So what I'd like to do now is invite two companies up, two companies who we're pleased to count as customers, both Mike Peterson from Neustar and Thomas Lee Warren from the Royal Mail Group in the UK. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Thomas. Okay. So what I thought would be interesting here is to just spend a minute. So two different customers coming from different ends of the spectrum. Mike, longtime user, over 4 years, right, in terms of what he's doing with the platform, many petabytes, many applications running on the platform. And Thomas, right, Royal Mail Group, very well established long-term company, but Thomas being newer to the platform, right, but accelerating adoption in terms of what they're doing. So with that, Mike, what I think would be interesting for the audience here is, with all the announcements of what we're talking today about the platform and some of the advancements in connected data platforms, how does that help somebody like Neustar, right, who's been working and has a lot of skill set already around Hadoop?
Yeah, let me first say that, we started our journey with you about 4.5 years ago. It was also the time when Neustar was starting to pivot to become more, to take our first party data and build marketing analytics and security analytics on top of that. And we've done a variety of acquisitions that bring those skill sets in. But these announcements, and much like many of the announcements in HDP over the years, seem to parallel our needs. Governance, security, the ability to do near-time analytics with Spark. And of course, we're particularly excited about NiFi because HDF, because we've also started an IoT process, and we've got multiple products we're doing. So these announcements are just dovetailing nicely into everything that we want to do, and very timely for us, because as we grow our expertise and we grow the type of products we want to build on this, these are the type of things we've been expecting.
So Mike, I know as a company, right, you've had a strategy now of growing through acquisition and continue to scale the business as you bring in new businesses and you look at different ways to go monetize your data. How does the platform help you as you think through that from a company strategy?
Well, part of those acquisitions is to get them on board as quick as possible. So being able to ingest that data and do it quickly and do it effectively into our core platforms. We have multiple clusters. And that's critical because we want these things to be an integrated platform. In order to do that, you have to have the data available and be able to have the type of workflow and data flow that allows those things to work together.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. So Thomas, let's talk a little bit. So you're right, newer user to Hadoop, right? Rapidly accelerating your adoption in terms of the use cases and the ability and what you can look at to do it. I know you've been a user of the Hortonworks data platform and HDP for your data at rest, but also now with some of the things around HDF, Hortonworks Data Flow and Data in Motion, what type of new use cases that open up or enable you to go do with the connected data platforms?
So we went from a standing start in the summer of 2015, where we first selected our HDP, and then immediately went into the delivery of business cases. And we had two significant business cases, which really saw us adopting Scala and Spark, because we wanted to maximize our data scientists and data analysts, and we found that Python was really actually taking a lot of time. And so that became very attractive to us. We saw significant benefit straight off the bat in terms of benefits around customer churn and also revenue leakage. And from there, we immediately started to look at HDF, and that really presented us opportunities in terms of accelerating our whole development process. Whereas before, when you look at enterprise operations, you've got your ETL, the changes that you need to make. All of a sudden, we had the capacity to actually take data from multiple sources, move it across from our more typical relational database systems, move it into Hortonworks, and then start to actually do some profound analytics, and then shift it out to our online systems. Now, we're running a couple of experiments already looking to improve to our customers how we can predict the delivery of our parcels and other items. And we're also looking at how we're taking information from audit logs around our important data assets and some of our PII information about how we can actually monitor and make sure that the right people are getting access to the right data.
So, listening to you, Thomas, what always gets me most excited is, as Royal Mail Group, you've been in the business of delivering mail since the 1500s.
Yeah,
So
we're
you've
celebrating
probably nailed
500
the
years
process
today.
of how you go deliver mail. But you see value in terms of the connected data platforms and what it can go do and how it allows you to look at the business and not only improve, but monetize the business in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So HDF and HTTP as well is really giving us advantage in terms of spending less time thinking about how we collect data and move it onto our platforms to then start considering what we do. We're now spending a lot of time on profound analytics and how we use HDF to then start to distribute that information to where our customers need it.
Mike, Thomas, thank you very much. Appreciate your support as customers. Appreciate your insights for the audience here. Thank you. So you've heard a couple examples from our customers, right, and as well as from us in terms of as we're thinking around connected data platforms and how they empower actionable intelligence. And two different types of companies, right, at very different ends of the spectrum in terms of a telecommunications company who's been getting broad applicability and value out of the platform for years, now looking to take it to the next level and be able to ingest more data through HDF. And the Royal Mail Group in terms of what they're doing, right, and the opportunities to go reinvent mail delivery in terms of how they can go do that through a connected data platform. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to bring up two other people. I'd like to bring up Scott Now, our Chief Technology Officer, to talk in a little bit more depth about the Spark at Scale strategy and what we talked about. But I'm also very excited that Scott will also bring up Martin Fink through our partner at Hewlett-Packard Enterprises, right, who we've worked with very closely in the open, right, embracing the open source model to say, how do we work together to go advance the platform together? So with that, Scott. Scott?
Thanks a lot, Herb, and thank you all for being here remotely and in person. Before we jump into the announcement, I want to talk a little bit about why this is so important now, right? With connected data platforms, Herb talked about the explosion of data. Herb and Rob and I will talk about how we're solving these problems in the open. But this is all really important now because I believe that we've really reached a tipping point of data. And this comes from a number of different factors, and we all hear about, large data volumes going from 4 zettabytes to 44 zettabytes and beyond in the future. And that's a daunting thing to think about. But in my mind, scalability is just table stakes. There's really something more important going on as it relates to the data tipping point. And that is, it's a new world that we live in where incremental change to existing technology isn't enough to get us there. And that's why the connected data platforms are so important and are so key, obviously, to our strategy. And what I mean by that is thinking about the different volumes of data as well as the variety of data as we move from ERP to CRM to web scale to social to sensor networks to the Internet of Things. The variety of data and what we need to do with that data to actually derive value changes immensely. It's no longer good enough to think about how do I go land the data, how do I apply schemas to the data, how do I build business requirements and reports. It's important, and we heard our customers even talk about, just land the data and actually use the data as a roadmap to the analytics that are important to differentiate in your business. That implies an entirely different tool set that's very open, that is very adept at changing. So the announcement that we made this morning about how we're changing and advancing our release schedule to be able to bring more agile technology to market more quickly is extremely important and compelling, because in this world that we live in the data tipping point, agility is going to be key. Flexibility for different tools. Scalability is table stakes, but that flexibility is really going to be where the difference occurs between successful and unsuccessful use of data and leverage of data. Spark is a very key engine, and Herb talked about the things that we're doing to enable enterprise-grade Spark. So being able to capture the data, manage the data in the connected data platforms, and then have tools that can disseminate analytics in real time at the speed of thought for an analyst is extremely important. And we're very happy to be able to include the Spark and the flexibility in our enterprise class platforms for dissemination of Spark at scale. But there's also a lot more. We're talking today about a collaboration that we'll be doing with Hewlett-Packard Labs, the innovation engine of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, to take Spark to the next level to improve overall performance and memory density. So we're doubling down on enterprise class Spark at scale. And to help talk about this announcement and what we're doing here today, I'm really thrilled that I have Martin Fink joining us from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Martin, come on up.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
So, Martin, I have really 3 questions I'll leave you with. Number 1, why Hortonworks? Number 2, why open source? And number 3, why the collaboration?
Great, thank you, Scott. 3 great questions. Let me actually start with the open source angle, because I think it's important as I get to the specifics of what we're doing together. You know, a lot of people look at open source as the visibility of code, and that's really how they absorb open source. I've been involved in the open source community since 1999, and when you're involved for that long, what you realize is that open source is about community and it's about collaboration. And so the importance of being able to look at open source in a collaborative way and allowing these kinds of collaborations I'll go through are very important. And so there are people who take open source and they are what I call consumers of open source. So they grab open source and then they build a whole bunch of proprietary stuff on top. There's another class which is I'm going to lock down open source and I'm going to treat it like proprietary, and they actually actively prevent collaboration from occurring. And so part of this collaboration, why it's important, this collaboration with Hortonworks, is that we saw this unique combination of openness and collaboration, which fits the themes that Rob and Herb and Scott have been talking about, which is 100% open, collaborative, and enterprise scale. So what did we do, and what's this collaboration about? Within our research labs, we had a research project where we wanted to work on the efficiency and scale of memory for the enterprise and memory utilization in the enterprise. And one of the things that when we looked around on how to do that was that Spark, being an in-memory analytics engine, we said, hey, let's start using that and analyze how it uses memory and what we can do in order to present more effective use of memory and larger scale memory. And we just started to dig deep into that, and we saw tremendous opportunities to do that. And for those of you familiar with the guts of Spark, there's something called the shuffle engine. And what we ended up doing as part of the research activity is we rewrote the shuffle engine. And for those of you who are really deep, we rewrote it from Java to C++, if that interests you. But that was a key part of the work that we did. And what ended up happening over time as we did this is we saw that we had rewritten a bunch of algorithms to make much more efficient use of memory. And then we also enabled ways in which you could scale memory even more. So if you wanted to build a cluster of, let's call them, quote, quote, small memory systems, you could do that. But if you also wanted to have a single large system up to 40 or 50 terabytes, you could also do that. And so now we said, hey, we've got this great body of code that is really different and delivers incredible performance enhancements. We worked with customers specifically in the financial services industry, where in some cases they saw 3 and 5x performance increases, in other cases 10 and 15x performance increases. And let me tell you, I've been in the technology industry a long time. It is not that often that you come out with things like 15x performance increases on certain workloads. So you pay attention when that stuff happens. So now we were faced with this, okay, so what do we do with this body of code? What do we do with this? And the problem is if we said, hey, let's us all by ourselves, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, let's go take that out, when you kind of studied this, and if you just go through and listen, everything Herb and went through here in terms of the scope scale of the Hortonworks data platform, it's pretty phenomenal. And so we knew that we needed this to be part of a greater whole. We needed to be part of that greater data platform. And so, and then this is where this open source collaborative environment came into play. And so we said, we're going to open source this code base because we think this is a tremendous contribution we can make to the community and to the world of better memory usage. We are very motivated to have better memory usage across all of our systems. And we said, where's the best place for us to do that? And that's why I started with the importance of how Hortonworks operates, of being 100% open, focusing on the collaborative, and really bringing the community together. And they were incredibly open. So rather than I said there's this classic company that says, hey, it's not my stuff, I don't want to touch it, they, the immediate reaction was absolutely, let's go do this together. And so now we've got a tremendous opportunity here because we can take this sort of core, gutsy, geeky kind of engine at the bottom, which delivers a huge amount of value, but make it part of a fantastic whole which fits this ethos and value of open source community collaboration. And we are very, very proud and excited to have Hortonworks become the maintainers of that code base. We will continue over time to contribute to that code base, but we think this will be a tremendous contribution to Spark, to the data management, to in-memory systems and in-memory data management. And we're really looking forward to how Hortonworks will then take the community forward with the overall data platform to make this even greater over time. So that's what we're doing.
That's a lot, and thank you very much, Martin, for being here to help us launch it.
All right.
Thank both Scott and Martin as they went through this. So great opportunity, and especially, talking with Martin about what's happening. I think it's a great testament to the power of the open source model to be able to collaborate and help accelerate the innovation that's happening in the platform by working with a company such as Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and to accelerate what's happening around Spark, but then being able to bring in, while accelerating that innovation, and drive it into a scalable, common platform that allows you to go run across the enterprise. I think it's a great opportunity that is the power and the testament to the open source model, working at scale and being able to build things that allow you to run inside of an enterprise. Right? So with that, what I thought I would summarize and close out for all of us is we've had a set of exciting announcements today. We are very excited to be able to talk about our set of connected data platforms and what they enable you to do to be able to manage data at rest and data in motion, and to be able to combine that together into the industry's first set of connected data platforms. And why that's important is to give companies and individuals the ability to glean actionable intelligence from that set of connected data platforms while managing all of their data. So with that, Hortonworks truly is powering the future of data. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining.